You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humbled host, Herut, and I got the master astrologer, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Oh, brother, never better. Just enjoying these cycles to come here at the end of the year. You know, the changes coming, the seasons are changing, enjoying getting prepared for this winter solstice. So that's about it. Tef, what about you?
You know, same thing. Just gearing up. You know, trying to end the year right. You know, and get some things in place. You know, for the changes to coming right around the corner and things like that. So yeah, everything's well though. Indeed. Before we move forward, I want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Calipurusha Astrology. You can find Push It Forward Media Group at Push It Forward. That's on Instagram. That's PUSHITFWD. And you can find us on, at the website as well, at pushitforward.com, spelled the same as the Instagram. There you can find this podcast. You can, get linked into our YouTube channel, which is Push It Forward Media Group on YouTube, and see, the different projects and, different articles and different things like that we got, going on and stuff like that. Brother Rod, tell them about Calipurusha Astrology and how they can get connected with you.
So typically you can hit me up on Facebook at Shechem Ra on FB on Facebook, or you can hit me up on Shechem Ra on IG, and then the email address that you can tag me on would be calipurusha@gmail.com. So one of those three ways, definitely get a hold of me.
Indeed. So yeah, here we are. We are here at episode 16. We've been getting, pretty consistent numbers. We appreciate everybody who's been listening. And, once again, the last episode seems to be quite a hit. A lot of people, really, really enjoyed it. And in fact, some people, even got a wind of, maybe part of what, underlying what my motivation for wanting to do a show like that as well. They're like, man, this should be a movie and stuff like that, man. What do you think about the last episode?
I actually went back and, listened and tuned in. Rarely do I tune into my own podcast because it's kind of like, hearing yourself kind of reiterate something, but it was I really found the last podcast edifying, even for my own person, for myself, just from listening to it from a third person perspective. And so I wanted more. I don't know about y'all, but I was like, man, I could keep listening to this. So it was quite a great podcast. I would say one of the ones that would definitely be marked as one of my favorites if I were listening from a third party perspective.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, because it's it's an interesting subject as far as just like, being able to, kind of peer into the past, and looking at, what was going on in the heavens at that time to really see, or peering into the future rather, looking at what's going to be going on at that time period to kind of get a good gauge of, what life will be like, and, with that information, we can start, gearing our families, gearing our, our children, all that stuff like that, to be able to sustain themselves in a world like that, So I think it's a very, very important topic indeed.
That's why we had dynasties,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then, again, like it's a lot of, specifically just the age of Aquarius, it's just, a lot of misconceptions as far as what that's going to bring, and I think that with us, doing a show like that, everybody may not agree, because of what's been, kind of put out there for so long, but it's something that needed to be said. And I think that, it definitely will, distinguish what we're doing in contrast to what, might be popularly out there at this time. Indeed. Yep. All right. So, moving on to this episode, we've been kind of following a little trend in this, particular, bend of the podcast. And, we've been kind of taking things that's kind of in current events and kind of applying them to, us as individuals, and how, they play out in our everyday lives, and just, kind of getting into how we can, kind of structure ourselves to, prepare, for the future, prepare for our current, better our current situations, and, pretty much kind of learn from the past. And, especially right now, here we're in the midst of the, what do they call them? The pre-elections, for, the Democrat nominees and stuff like that, getting ready for the 2020 elections. And, politics is heavy out there. It's a lot of, interviews, a lot of different things out there, a lot of different ideas out there. And, personally, I'm not too into the politics like that, but I do, kind of keep my eye on it a little bit, just to, be informed about what's going on. And, one of the major topics out there is automation, right? And, it's kind of a debate on whether, the way that, how to deal with automation, right? Some people say, just kill the robots, right? Just shoot them, and the problem's gone. And other people are like, well, we're not going to do that, but, we can, maybe there's some, some things that can be done on a federal level that can help ease the blow to people who might be losing their livelihood, to a robot. And others are like, we'll train people for the jobs of the future. Right. And I think that, again, bringing in the practical science of astrology and the way that, we used it in our ancient traditions and different things like that. Astrology actually can offer a very objective look at that particular topic. And, what would be a more, practical way at trying to solve that problem, So, what do you think about that, that topic, that subject of automation and training people, and, all, skills being obsolete, and who can do what, who can do, this and that, and,
Well, you could put a monkey in space.
They tried.
And train a monkey to, for all intents and purposes. And they have done this, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not surprising. If you could put a monkey in space, it says a lot about, the way society kind of views task-oriented, being task oriented or having certain abilities with regards to carrying out. But of course, the monkey was done for scientific purposes and whatnot, test other things. But just as a fun fact, what I mean, if you could put a monkey in space, imagine what they're thinking about what you can do on Earth.
Yeah.
In regards to the automation of things. But it is an interesting topic in that, and this is what we were talking about in the age of Aquarius, in that, the way society is headed, the excesses of Jupiter will be the lessons of Saturn, the hard lessons of Saturn. And, a lot of it is for the purposes, truly, and for all intents and purposes, for making more money and to, kind of shut out the need to really spread the wealth, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
No one really cares about, whether, it used to be back in the day where, things were made with pride. A car was made with pride. America, not to say I'm espousing America as a country, not by far. People, please understand this. But, the whole brand made in the USA, that was kind of made popular back in the 80s, and the 90s, right? Because America was known for creating many, many, many different things. In fact, in the chart of America, in the United States of America's horoscope, the moon is in the third house of Aquarius. And I know people, I'm not one that hold back names. Sam Geppe said that he doesn't believe America's ascendant is Sagittarius and he hasn't vetted it and all that kind of stuff. Well, I have vetted it, and it is Sagittarius ascendant, and I'd be more than willing to go to have a conversation with anybody. But it is Sagittarius, for all intents and purposes, is America's ascendant. And so the third house becomes Aquarius. Well, the moon, which represents the masses, the minds of the people, is in the third house, and the third house is the house of hands, but also is the house of inventions. And so America was literally the majority of the technologies that we take for granted on an everyday basis was created in America. The airplane, the automobile, the telephone, the television, the microwave. All these things were created in America. And so at some point in time, you found that America had a sense of pride, had a sense of dignity, and had a sense of concern about the things that are created. Now, of course, the Japanese, the Asians, and the world around have taken things to a whole nother level. But the point is that when the car industry, the automobile industry, was, for all intents and purposes, in Detroit and back in the Midwest, that was that there were a lot of workers, right, that were employed, in fact, sent their children to college and so forth, bought homes and lived fairly decent lives, because this is post-industrial revolution, right? This is when the industrial revolution was at its height, if you will. And so the Industrial Revolution has died, been buried, and there's a gravestone there, right?
Yeah.
So now we're in the computer age, right? The technological age, right? Where automation is done with a program, right? With the ability to put a program together and you hit enter, and now the whole thing is running on automation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But the real juxtaposition of this is that, a lot of people really feel and believe that anybody can do anything, right? And, a computer can do it just as good as a human, if not better. And, I grew up eating McDonald's, most of us did. I'm not going to sit here and act like, I was vegetarian for my childhood. In the 70s, when I was a kid, that was unheard of, right? So, McDonald's was, the creme de la creme for fast food, right? And so, just to use that as an example. Right? And hey, you know what? It probably was real food back then, right? Nowadays, the stuff that they have around these fast food joints is, you sit it outside and leave it there for 3 years and it looks the same as when you bought it. But, even in McDonald's, there was a pride in doing something. Not to say the guy that behind there flipping a burger felt like he was making some impact on society. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that the brand, right, for all intents and purposes, had some je ne sais quoi to it, right? And so, when they say over 99 billion burgers, I don't know what the whole, thing is that they say sold, but, you lose something when it becomes repetitious. Now they don't cook their burgers, right? They used to go and you sit and look in the back and they would like cook their food, literally. Like they'd have a guy flipping burgers.
Yeah.
Now it comes out of a bin, right? Literally, right? It comes out of a bin. Like no one's cooking anything. Nothing. The only things that might be cooked is fries, right? That's it. So, just the world round, you can pick anything in regards to seeing things from where they were done from before and where they're done now. It's just lost a lot of the quality. Well, the thing is that we were talking about earlier that, and even in the schools, they're turning this into automatons. They're taking out art in schools, taking out the music in schools, they're taking out cursive handwriting in schools, and all of the creative essences that really define the artistic right brain side of man is being removed so that we can become this STEM society, right?
Yeah. And
it's just they're turning us into human robots, if you will. But life is strange, right? Life has a way of balancing itself out in some way. And, the thing is the real point of this whole topic is that a lot of people, higher ups especially, but I've talked to a lot of people that really believe that anybody can do anything. And that's just far from the truth, right? We all can't do the same thing, right? And heaven knows computers darn for sure can't duplicate what man can duplicate, not with the same delicacy and the same sense of invention. They can reproduce, but they can never create. And so that creative side, that special aspect that man has with regards to being able to manifest something out of nothing almost is his special gift. It's our special gift.
Yeah.
But to do that, right, we all have to have something that we do very well, right? And there was a young lady talking to not too long ago, and she truly believed that we all can do anything if we put our minds to it, right? And of course I laughed, and it was a chuckle, because it's very interesting and a lot of young people think that these days, because of the computer age, computer technology, I can do anything you can do. Well, nature isn't designed that way, folks. There is in nature itself, there's a specialization in everything in nature. Everything in nature has a specific role to play, a specific thing to do, has specific powers that are lended to it so that it can have the ability to survive above and beyond all creatures. Let's take, for example, the dog, right? People take dogs for granted. But the dog's nose is 300 to 400 times more powerful than a human's nose.
Yeah.
A dog can smell cancer. It can smell things you and I probably... In fact, it smells so well, it can remember you through smell. because his eyesight isn't so keen. Not as keen as its sense of smell.
Yeah.
Right? And our ancestors espoused that as Anpu, right? Or, right, some of us know it as Sebek, right? So the sense of smell in the dog is very specific. It's a specific power that's been gifted to it for the purposes of survival, right? Birds, right? Let's talk even about the falcon or the raptor family, right? Eagles, hawks, falcons, so forth. Well, they have the ability of sight, right? They can see things from a long distance away, better than man. They even have an extra eyelid that allows them to literally fly and control themselves without being blinded by the sun. Right? So there's another specialization aspect. I mean, all creatures are designed this way, right? Every creature. Even if you don't think it is, just look a little deeper. Bees are designed this way. And even within the bee species itself, it has specialization roles within itself. The queen doesn't try to do what the drone does. The worker bee doesn't try to do what the queen does. Right? They all have a very special role. Right? So when you begin to see nature, and we call nature netter, enjora, netter, that is the word that we understood it as what we call today God. Right? The medu netter, each creature is a word of God.
Yeah.
So, right, I mean, like we could go on down the list. Ants, right? All of them there's a specialization, right? I mean, every creature on the planet, trees even have a specialization. And even within the tree species itself, they have further specialization processes. So specialization is the rule of the day. And in man, you can't escape it either. So just like we look at man, we're all the same. Right? Well, let's just talk about men and women. Right? Now, we come to a genderless point in society, which is so sad. Right? But they're now trying to give man the gift to have babies. Right? Now, folks, trust me. And this is where Western society is taking us, in essence, to think that a man can do what a woman can do. I'm not sexist, I'm not biased, I'm not chauvinist, I'm not any of those things. For all intents and purposes, we are equal, but we're not the same. A woman does what a woman does best because she's designed and specified to do that. A man does what a man does best because he's designed to do that. And even within subdividing or going deeper into those more subtle levels, within man, within different races, you have different processes. The African, dark-skinned individuals of this planet can absorb vitamin D much more efficiently than those of a lighter persuasion, or a European stock can absorb vitamin D. This is scientifically proven. So it's not personal, it's not racist, it's just what it is. That everything on this planet is created with a very specific purpose, with a very specific design behind it. Well, let's talk about man in general. Man in general, right? It's not every person on this planet is not designed to be a Michael Jordan. And I know a lot of people say, well, if you work hard enough, right? If you work hard enough, you can do that too. Sorry, y'all. Supreme Being knows what it's doing. It invests portions of itself in all of us to give us what we do best, to do that, to do just what we do best, so it can realize itself through each and every aspect of creation. From the ant, from the bee, all the way to man, but man himself is also duty bound to follow what we call destiny. right? And so the ability to do something first usually requires, in man, the desire to do so. Right. Now, there's some circumstances, always exceptions to the rule when we're forced by circumstances to do something, right? But typically, when we do something, it's the desire to do it. And I'm not talking about eating. I'm not talking about procreating. I'm not talking about the basic fundamental functions of existence. I'm talking about things that are beyond that, like writing, right? Like martial arts, like acting, right? Like we could go on and on. Teaching, right? Like music, painting, right? Business, politics, right? Mathematics. All these things are done because of desire. No one will do anything on this planet if it wasn't for desire, right? Now, there's higher desires, there's lower desires, we know that. But I'm talking about the desires that really take you out of the normal day-to-day existence of life, meaning things that you really do want to do and you desire to do that benefit not only yourself, but mankind as a whole. But man as a whole, rather, because mankind is another word, but man as a whole. So when we talk about desire, let me ask you this, Atef. Do you know what the root word of desire is? What the root is? What does it really come from?
I do not. Desire.
Well, let's do a little etymological fact check, right? So the word desire, and you all, it's good to, when you begin to study things, it's good to study the etymology of things, because then that gives you the understanding of where these things really come from and really what they were intended to say. But desire comes from the Latin cognate, or I believe it's not Latin. It is a cognate, meaning it's a combination. Desidere.
Mm-hmm.
Desidere means of the stars.
Interesting.
Right. I found that out. I was like, wow. I mean, desire has something to do with the stars? Like, how does that work? Well, right. Those desires are, let's talk about the desire to fight, right? To protect, to uphold truth, to implement justice, right? We know what planet that comes from, right? Right. Exactly. So Mars imputes and imbibes its essence to those that the divine plan has sought out to create a being that will carry out the implementations of those forces from the planets in the form of desire. I thought about that. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that the martial aspect of man, right, is from on high? That the part of us that want to be police officers, that want to be firemen, that want to be boxers, right, MMA fighters, you name it, right? Football players, basketball players, all these things are from gifts from heaven above.
Interesting.
Right? In the form of desire, right? Those that want to paint, that want to create, that want to become musicians, right? Well, we know what planet would be the instrument of those things, right?
Venus.
It's Venus, right? So, literally, your desires are birthed or created or manifested before you even step foot on the planet. They're already innately inherent in the basic structure of man's being.
Indeed.
So when we talk about desire, or that which is of the stars, right? We're not just talking about, I want to go out and play ball and, go shoot a few rounds. That's not what I mean. I mean something that you take to another level of expertise, right? A high level of proficiency. And that requires something very special. It requires something that carries us beyond, challenges, beyond setbacks, beyond obstacles, right? That is true desire.
Yeah.
Right? That when we get to that point and, we don't care what is befalling us, we're going to get that done. That is heavenly. That is divine. Right? That is something that has been bequeathed to you as a very special thing, a specialization for you to do something above and beyond all the others in the world. Now, there's groups of those people, right? That's why we have an MBA.
Yeah.
Right? So it's showing you that even though within your speciality, right, you're still common amongst other people that have the same speciality. So that means that something is instrumenting or governing or ruling or moving people to an end.
Indeed.
So for us to disavow, and you do have some people that have multiple talents, right? Multiple skills, right? There are those, and there are exceptions to the rule. They're very far and few in between. They're not common, right? You have some people that can play the piano and get a triple double, and it's no problem. Not very many, because the specialization skills that are required for one thing don't lend the neuronal, physiological, and mental composition to do something else efficiently, except in a few circumstances. So, when we talk about this whole, automaton, or thinking that we're all equal, we're all can do any and everything, and everyone else can do, you can just do what thou wilt, right? Right? People say, well, you have free will, right? Do you really? You have to ask yourself that question and step back. Do you really have free will? What does that even mean? People just say things, right? God gave man free will. That's a lie, right? No such thing on the planet, y'all. Doesn't exist. It's a made-up myth, just like all the other myths we've been talking about before. It's a myth, right? There's no such thing as free will. And I know this sounds deterministic, right? Sounds, very... Well, that's not true. Well, let's just talk about it a little bit. Atef, did you choose the parent you were born to?
Not directly.
Did you choose them?
No, not directly.
How about the city you were born into?
No, not directly.
How about the country?
Nope.
How about the body?
No, not directly. Not that I recall, per se.
So from the start, looks like free will is kind of out the door. When people say, well, I chose my parents.
Well,
that's a very interesting concept. Because if that's the case, people then would have chosen to be abused, wouldn't they?
No, they wouldn't.
People would have chosen to be raped.
No.
People would have chosen to be abandoned. People would have chosen to be subject to a life full of unsavory things that most of us, if we did have the choice, would avoid at all cost. So we really got to take the word choice out of the equation.
I would say agreed upon, agreed to.
That would be a better concept. That'd be a better concept. Agreed. Agreed. Meaning there would have to be a coalescing of two parties, right, to form an agreement.
Yeah.
Right. How about the idea that we realized the best situation to learn the lesson that we needed to learn? A realization is an epiphany. A realization is an awakening. A realization is something you see beyond all other things, right? So you realized yourself through them, because it's the only way you could literally, as Harut, be sitting here having this conversation to take you through the path to be who you are today, right? So choice is not really inherent in this process. The only thing that choice allows you to do is to not default to a program that was instituted by your lower nature. I don't even like that word, lower nature. By the animal nature, let's say that.
Yeah.
Right. That would minimize your ability to maximize on your gifts, skills, and talents. To really pull out the higher, more developed mental and spiritual abilities of yourself. That's where choice comes in. And guess what? That only happens on this plane when you are a certain age.
Yeah.
See, choice is inherent in the frontal lobes. When do your frontal lobes develop?
After the age of 28.
So up to 28, we can throw choice out the window, can't we?
Yeah.
Right? Right. 28. 25. I'll give some of you 25. That's provided you haven't abused yourself to the max degree. Through sugars, fast food, fatty foods, drugs, alcohol, high emotional reverie states, which the majority of us experience. We have to rebuild that part of our brain to have some functional competency.
Yeah.
So when you begin to understand choice is not really inherent until you become a certain age, we really can throw choice out the door altogether. So then what happens? What's in charge? What's governing these things? Right? The Supreme Being is always in full control. Even when you think you're doing something that you think you chose, you didn't.
Yeah.
Right? You leaned either usually one way or the other. But for the most part, all those things were bequeathed to you through destiny, through providence. Right? And when we talk about, the society that we live in, right? I mean, for all intents and purposes, right? They don't acknowledge this stuff is spooky, pseudoscience type stuff. They relegate it to, stuff that you really can do without. But in fact, it's the very opposite. This knowledge is the one thing that you really shouldn't be doing anything without when it comes to making true choices. Right? Because most of us would choose that which feels good, looks good, smells good, tastes good, sounds good. And good as in what is pleasurable or what is delightful to the senses. So when we begin to understand this thing, free will, it's a misnomer. It's a misunderstanding by a being that doesn't have the real spiritual depth that lasts, that is cultivated from 4,000 to 5,000 years of seeing how man operates from top to bottom. Our ancestors designed things with this knowledge in mind. That's why we had what used to be called prearranged marriages.
Yeah.
Right? Because they understood something. We had rites of passage. They understood things that, Atunde, he would be better at doing this in society. He'd be better at that. And we had oracles, right? We had diviners that would literally tell you what you were going to do at birth. In Kemet, there's two beings that were present during your birth. Meskenet and Shy. Right? We won't get into what Meskenet is, but Shy. Remember the group? I don't know if you're old enough to remember a group called Shy. You called Shy back in the day.
I remember them.
Shy means destiny in Kemetic terms.
Interesting.
Shai. Shy was present at your birth. Right? So the Kemetic legacy always understood that destiny is inherent in what you do. You can't escape it. And so destiny calls forth the mathematician, right? To bring forth that which the stars have invested in that being in order to realize for the supreme being to realize itself through those activities of that being, through degrees and levels of self-mastery. Right? Serena Williams, right? Let's talk about a little specifics of astrology. Let's get into a little bit of it. So we talked about Mars, right?
Yeah.
Mars has to be in very specific positions in order to exact this particular ability of individuals. Now, it can be done numerous ways, right? It doesn't have to, people say, well, does it have to be a Martial ascendant? Or no, there's so many different ways it can be done. But Mars is always a key planet in anyone that has supreme athletic ability, right? Well, her Mars, right, number one, rules her ascendant. She's Aries ascendant, right? And Mars is in her 4th house, right? That means it's in Cancer, debilitated. Now, debilitations are a strange thing. I'm not going to get into the science of debilitations because it's not as easy as you think to read. But let's just say this. Mars in the 4th house in Cancer specifically shows that not only does she have the extreme drive to make something happen, martially speaking, the 4th house is the area of a chart that shows a person's satiation, what gives them satisfaction.
Yeah.
So a planet there is what satiates a person. Literally what gives them pleasure, if you will. What makes them calm. And Mars being in that position shows, number one, that the relationship that she's been crafted. See, it's like everything folds into each other in astrology. So we don't just look at one thing, we look at all of these things that manifest. Well, her Mars in the 4th house, it's horrible for the mother. The relationship with the mother is horrible. I have to say all, because there's always exceptions to the rule. There are many times I've seen Mars in the 4th house that the relationship with the mother may be not horrible, but it's definitely not one that would be considered motherly and loving and appreciative and kind and gentle. But for her mother wasn't really present. And that lack of motherly coaxing and reassuring and nurturing was through her father. Well, the masculine energy is Mars. And so that masculine energy literally instilled itself into her heart's desire for competition.
Yeah.
The need to win, the need to be first. So her ascendant Lord, right, is in the 4th house in Cancer, the sign that grows anything that's in its realm. Whatever planet is in Cancer, Cancer grows it. So literally, when we begin to look at Mars and Cancer in the 4th house, and the 4th house is the natural sign that has an affinity with Cancer, this means that this person, physically, her physical body, first Lord, ascendant, goes to the 4th house. So that means she herself physically would give herself satiation through exercise, through competition, through winning. This is specifically showing that the specialization gifted to her through the planet Mars, through the desire and need to be number one, is her calling. And we could go down the line, folks. It works this way every single time. We talked about Bruce Lee, right? Remember?
Yeah.
Bruce Lee's Scorpio ascendant, ruled by Mars.
Yeah.
Not Pluto, y'all. Sorry, we don't deal with the other planets here. Not in that way. It's ruled by Mars. And guess where Mars sits?
12th house.
Within 7 degrees of the moon.
Yeah.
So do you see what I'm saying? Is that this thing here called life, right, is oriented around a specific function. And a function always has a form that's connected to it.
Indeed.
Right? So this thing, we say, well, I can do anything I want. You can't. The best thing to do is to find out what you do best and to do it the best that you can do. Right? You know who Timothy McVeigh is, right?
Yeah.
Right? Well, Timothy McVeigh, right? His Mars is in the 3rd house of hands. Well, the 3rd house is the house of self-expression, right? The house of courage, the house of fighting. There's a few houses for fighting, 3rd and 6th house, right? But the 3rd house is one of them. And so Mars in the 3rd house, right? Bar none, shows this individual, right, espoused or promoted, or whether you want to say articulated through action or words, through action, which is Mars, the need to rebel. Well, he's Aquarius ascendant with the moon in Aquarius. So his destiny wrote into his being that, look, we want the part, not to say, because, it's a thin line here that you have to be careful of. I'm not espousing or promoting Timothy McVeigh's actions. I'm saying that there are forces behind his actions that literally caused him to move into a direction that ended the lives of many unfortunate people. But that ending of lives was caused because he followed or lended himself to forces that he had no understanding of. It's conjunct an exalted sun with Mercury. Right? So I'm just showing that the mind, the moon is in Aquarius, right? The mind is thinking outside of the box through Aquarius. Aquarians don't like to be pigeonholed, and they reverie in rebellion. So his life, it could have been done in a different way, but nonetheless, the forces behind it are still the same.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could go on and on and on and on and on. Everyone is created this way. I mean, Prince, musician Prince.
Oh, yeah.
He himself, right? Same thing. He's Libra ascendant, right? Libra ascendant, right? And Libra is ruled by what?
Venus.
Good old Venus. Right? And so that Libra ascendant, right? Literally is the first key marker that we begin to look at when it comes to, one's talents, abilities, and what they're going to do in life. The ascendant is always key. I tell a lot of individuals that over and over and over, you'll hear me say it over and over and over, that the ascendant is key to understand what someone is going to do in life or how they are. Right? So his ascendant is in Aries in the 7th house. Ascendant Lord, is in Aries. So what does that do? It causes Venus to look back upon himself, because anything that's in the 7th house looks at the 1st house. So he himself, right, the planet that ruled him was in the 7th house looking back upon the 1st. So automatically being in the 7th house, which is a key primary major house, 1, 4, 7, and 10, that's a major house that shows that this person is invested in doing things based on relationships, based on other people, and is passionate about doing it to the point where he will literally run roughshod over individuals, because the Aryan energy that encapsulates Venus in his chart shows a relentless determination. Now, his moon is in the 5th house, and the 5th house is a house of creativity. Right? The moon is in the 5th house of being able to literally create something new, right? It is a house. There's a few houses that go with music. The 5th house is one of them. So this is to show that this individual is designed to do music, and music that is not going to be what everybody else is looking to have. And I mean, when Prince came out, he was looked upon as like, who is this person making these types of songs? And it was very sexualized. Well, Venus, Ascendant Lord in the 7th house, will be very sexualized, y'all. Just is. So, I mean, there's other pieces of the puzzle of his chart. I don't want to examine his whole chart during this particular conversation, but this is just to show you that over and over and over and over again, you're going to find the themes in everyone that does something of significance in this world. You're going to find them that they have the desire, which was articulated by heaven at the time of birth, to do these things without their even their own understanding of them doing it. So everyone has a specific job to do. Everyone has a specific thing to do. Even if it's not noticeable in the masses or the public eye, you yourself have something very specific that you are here to do. Sometimes it's few things. It's not just one. But there's something that calls to you. There's something that calls to us. There's something that calls to what we want to do in life above and beyond all others. They say you have a calling, few answer. Right.
Yeah.
Few choose. Many are called. Few are not chosen, but few choose. Because then when we talk about choice now, then that's when you can start to use the word choice. Well, you know what? I chose not to go and hang out with my partners to get this done. I chose, right, not to go and do something that would distract me from doing what it is that I'm drawn to do innately. That's when the small smidgen of choice begins to be birthed. When you can literally say, I literally am going to choose not to default to something that would not be beneficial to my destiny, and choose what will lead me to a path of eventual self-mastery through whatever it is. It could be through music, it could be through mathematics, it could be through drawing, it could be through computers. We don't even talk about computers because there's a planet that rules them too, right? And that planet will have a say-so somehow, some way, somewhere in a person's chart that is at the level of taking computers to extreme heights or to making himself or herself known for computers. Mercury will be there. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. Conjunct the moon in the ascendant, in the 10th house. It's going to be in a prominent position in the 3rd, in the 4th. It's going to be in some position that you will be unequivocally able to say that is this person's destiny.
It's funny that you say that because, there's a little discrepancy on what Bill Gates' chart is, if he's a Cancer or a Gemini. But, if he's Cancer, he has that in his chart. Mm-hmm. Mars and Mercury conjunct in the 3rd house.
Absolutely. I mean, people can go, astrology is a strange thing. You have to be keen in understanding how things play out in a person's life to really become cognizant of subtle factors, to be able to really show and delineate, no, that's not what this is. Characterization of a person is easy to see from the outside, but when you start to look at little small things in a person's life, it becomes fairly evident that this is what this is. That's how we do what's called chart rectification. We begin to go and comb through little pieces of a person. I mean, small things. Small things. It seems insignificant, but it's very key and crucial. So, in his regard, yes, absolutely, he is a Cancer ascendant. I know a lot of folks beg to differ, but hey, that's what he is, and you can see it through many aspects. Let's talk about Bill Gates. In fact, that's an excellent example. He has Mercury in the 3rd house conjunct Mars in Virgo. Now, the drive that it takes to leave college, I'm talking about the desire, right? Think about this. You come from a family that is promoting you to go to college. And you're in college, and you're smart. But something just doesn't set right, and you gotta do something else different. That means that drive has to take over and take you on a tangent, a roller coaster ride of sorts, right? To make something like what he made. That's the 3rd house, y'all. That's, the 3rd house is your drive to get things done. Incessant drive. I'm not talking about just a drive. I'm talking about drive to, just like we talked about Timothy McVeigh. Mars is in the 3rd house too. But see, Sun is in his 3rd. His Mars is in Aries, which is the warrior, right? The one that fights for justice, the one that, right, wants to take it to the man, take it to the powers, fight the powers that be. And the Sun is there exalted. So this person is almost fearless. In a way. Fear is always there, trust me. But it appears to be fearless. Right? But for good old Bill, right, Mars conjunct Mercury means that fearlessness is conjoined Mercury in his exaltation in the 3rd house. See, when you begin to understand little small nuances, Mercury is the natural ruler of the 3rd house. So it's almost like a double exaltation, if you will. It's exalted in Virgo, and it's in its own natural house. So that's a double whammy. So this person has to make something happen with computers or with something Mercury-like. Has to. That's when you begin to understand astrology. right? And it's opposite the moon in the ninth house. And the ninth house is higher thinking, right? Thinking in terms of doctorate level stuff, thinking in terms of other next level thinking, right? So this opposition of the third, ninth house, right, positioning, bar none, fits him much better than any other Gemini or any other ascendant, right? So, that's when we begin to become, a little bit more keen in understanding how this astrological thing works. But nonetheless, the bottom line is all of it is desire. All of it is desire, right? And so then when we can just see that, wow, desire literally means of the stars, that the things that we do, the things, the drives that we have are bequeathed to us because the positions of the planets at the time in which we entered this plane called Earth, right, are designed to get us to do something that the Supreme Being has already inherently designed us to do in the first place. So anyone saying that anyone else can do anything is not only simply silly, but it's downright ignorant, because people don't understand that from the amoeba, right, all the way to the most complex creature, right, all of it has a very specific intent, a form, and a function, and all of it has something to do with exercising the divine plan.
Yeah,
all of it. And that's when you begin to study. And the ancestors, what did they say? Know thy what?
Self.
Know thyself. Right? When you know yourself, no one can tell you anything. And sometimes we do know ourselves innately. We know I need to do this no matter what. That desire is so strong. Right? Now there's a master desire. I'm not going to get into the master desire, what it is. Right? A Tef knows, he knows, right? When that desire takes over, then all the other desires come in line, right? And then you can master those desires even faster. But that's not for me to say in this particular podcast. That's for you to find out. But even if you don't have the master desire and understanding how it works, you still have desire that's going to take you somewhere, someplace, to someone, to do something, right? When you meet your mate, it ain't nothing but desire, right? Why did you meet that person? For what purpose and intent, right? And then when the child comes through, a baby comes through, and you wonder, why did they come through us? Because there's something innate in the two people that make the one person that is inherent in the destiny called forth to give them their gifts, talents, and skills to carry forth what we call the divine plan. So, we could talk about all kinds of different things, the way nature, Neter, the Supreme Being, specializes itself. There's something called the doctrine of signatures, right? You can research that. Intelligence, some people call it intelligent design, right? For lack of better words, people want to call it intelligent design. Okay, you can call it that too, right? Same, it's the same thing. Doctrine of signatures means that every plant has a signature to it, right? And that plant is ruled by a planetary energy. All things, everything. Nothing escapes the planets. Nothing escapes astrology. People say, well, you think everything is astrology. It is. Right. The one thing we talked about in the beginning of where we're saying that, they want to talk about making everything computerized and automated. There is, or was, it's not too popular anymore, but it was a while back. And if you have a child, if you have children, definitely look into, there's a topic called multiple intelligences, right? And in multiple intelligences, what it is it's basically saying astrology. It's kind of talking, it is really astrology, but it's just not putting an astrological label to it, and they don't use astrology to delineate or to harness or to extract what it is that you're supposed to be doing. But multiple intelligence is, I believe, was invented by Dr. Kagan. Don't quote me on this, folks. Research it yourself, right? But I think it's Dr. Kagan. But anyway, in multiple intelligences, what it is talks about educational systems that literally begin to fashion and farm people in a way that creates the innate, or draws out the innate ability of a person to do something very special. Right. So if you have culinary gifts, right, they have a culinary class or set of culinary culinary curriculum, if you know what I mean, right? If math is your thing, they have a mathematic curriculum. You learn everything through math. If art, right, whatever it is that you are called, those intelligences that are the desires or the forces that are most prevalent in you, and they're brought to a level where they use them they use an educational system and tie them to an educational system that literally begins to craft these things from a very early age. That is true intelligence. Because could you imagine?
Yeah.
Has someone that said, you know what, Bill Gates, you ain't gotta worry about college. We already know what you're gonna do. You know what you need to do. Right? Come on over here. We got this ready for you. We got a whole computer curriculum for you. Right? Michael Jordan, we got you. Now, society's kind of geared towards certain things, if you will, because sports is a big thing in the West. Right? But you know, they have sports programs and all that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about really using sports as a way to teach the individual not only about sports but about life, about math. You can use sports, math in sports. You can use art in sports. You know, it kind of has its own special process to teach by when you begin to take the person and show it how it is integrated in all aspects of what they do. Right. So that's called multiple intelligence. I really suggest anyone with children, if you really want to understand a great educational system, what it would look like, what it would be in a perfect world, right? That's a great book to. It's a couple of books out there on multiple intelligence, and so you can Google it and find it on probably Amazon. I know I have a pretty big thick book, because I have a couple of children myself, and I was really looking at how could I best instruct them to help them become the best they need to be with the gifts that they've been given. Right. And so excellent book to read, excellent book to study. If you can find programs, educational programs like that, wherever you are respectively, hey, hats off. You definitely are in the right place, in the right time. But, there's other things that, you can understand, with regards to this, when you really research and understand things, you see that this is how life is designed. You see how this is how you're designed, we're designed. Astrology, right? I mean, you don't just become an astrologer, folks. You know what I mean? It's not something that is really, if you have the desire to do it and it's in your destiny to do it, anyone can do it at a certain level, but to do it when you can predict, and I'm talking about consistently predict, right? It takes a life of its own, right? This thing takes over your life, literally, right? And so, it doesn't mean that you can't study it. And in fact, I admonish anyone to study it at whatever level that you want to take it to, because then you begin to learn certain basic life lessons that astrology teaches without being able to have the predictive knowledge. Just to know thyself, to know you, to know your children, to know your family, to know those things is by far invaluable compare it in comparison to, Western psychology, or, being able to, they have these tests that you take and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this stuff is thousands upon thousands of years old, and it still works to this day. In fact, it works so well, it stands on its own, and to the point where, if I just literally give you your information and show you how to look and where to look, you can see for yourself. So it's that powerful, it's that potent, but again, I'm not here to discourage anyone to learning astrology, but there are certain principles, there are certain placements in a chart that we look for as astrologers to truly know this person will take it far, right? One key factor above all, and I tell you this, bar none, well, actually there's two: the 5th house and the 8th house.
Yeah.
Those two houses have to have some degree of strength, right, in order to really become a truly adept astrologer. The 5th house is the house of prediction, right? The house of literally forecasting, speculation, right? And the 8th house is the house of intense research to the point where your eyeballs fall out your head, right? To the point where you lose sleep. So, those are two primary. There's other houses and other planetary combinations, a whole bunch of them. And there's not just one. The one thing about astrology, it can work in so many different ways and the same outcome manifests. But nonetheless, there are patterns that we read to see if a person has the gift, right, of being able to predict. And so, with that being said, study your stuff, y'all. Study your charts, study your children's charts, study your mate's charts, right? Study, people around you. Just pick somebody up, somebody at work, pick it up and say, hey, you have to be crafty sometimes. You have to be a little, can't just go off the tangent like, hey, let me get all your stuff. But if they're willing to participate, definitely, get their information and begin to study people around you to see the handiwork of the Supreme Being in everybody's life. See the handiwork of what we call God on a person, even the person that sits outside that has the sign that's asking for food. Right? You ever wonder what happened to him? Right? I used to sit there like, what did you go through to put you on the corner with a sign? Right? What happened to you in your life? That's when I'm like, let me get your chart. Let me see. Whoa. Wow. Right? Saturn conjunct the moon. Right? In Scorpio, conjunct Ketu, aspected by opposition Mars, right? I mean, Sun is, in a position that's compromised as well. I mean, you see a person's whole pattern, and you're like, whoa! Even the person sitting there with the sign that says "We'll work for food" is at the hand of Providence, is at work.
Indeed. I think, this, part of my, part of the reason why, I wanted to even, get into this, doing this podcast is that, I think astrology needs to be mainstream, or at least the, consultation of an astrologer needs to be a mainstream thing, because it'll clear up a lot of these different, ideologies of, how we move the country, how, you determine, hey, does my kid go to college or not go to college? Does my kid go to trade school or not go to trade school? Do I go to trade school? Do I, embark on a film career? Do I embark on, being a engineer or a teacher or different things like that? So you can really, live life efficiently,
Bro, had I had this before, had I had this when I was a young man, And I'm not that old, but I ain't that young, right? Right. Had I had this in high school, imagine you in high school. We're in high school, and someone is pulling us in the counselor's office and says, "Hey, Tef, Harut, hey, you know what? This is you right here. This is where you should head. In fact, we have a whole thing set up for you to go down that path, man. You're good." It would have, like you said, would have saved so much time and challenges that wouldn't have necessarily had to occur, because it would have really honed you into your gift. Right now, you got it because of providence, but imagine society at large being directed in assisting the hand of God. That is different, right? Walking with the supreme intelligence to say, okay, I got it. I should be an electrical engineer. Boom, right? There it is, right? And then you have what are called levels of mastery that we probably don't even understand, right? This is how pyramids are built. This is how things, medicine, cures, and things of that nature that come out, that, the medical field, right? Imagine someone says, yeah, you know what? You got sun in the 6th house, man. You'd be good in the medical field. Yeah. Sun in the 6th house, really? That's medicine? Yeah, definitely. In fact, we have a whole program designed because there's other people that are leaning in the air, and then all of these great minds begin to amalgamate and mix and coalesce and come up with literally ideas and thoughts that would transcend us to a whole nother level of societal bliss. But, that's, like I said, in a perfect world. But bar none, you should definitely have contact with an astrologer. You should have contact with a diviner. You should have contact with someone that can give you insight into what is going on and how things work. Right? And we're not here to help you avoid things. We're here to help you understand why the things are happening and how to maximize on them. There's a lot of people out there to say, well, astrologers help you avoid things. No, we don't. Because you can't avoid them anyway. Right? But what we do, and I'll tell you a little story about how it worked in my life. And we can tie it up there. But there was a time when I had Mars in a very prominent position in my chart where I knew I could see there was a car accident coming, bar none, without a doubt. I said, all right, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to be very cautious and very mindful of how I'm navigating here through these next couple of days. So I was coming out of a tire shop, and, it was so prevalent in my forethoughts just to inch out of the tire shop. I just got my tires changed. I said, just inch out, just inch. Because it was in my brain was like, hey, you know what time it is, bro. Be careful. So I inched out. Inched. And lo and behold, the guy in front of me, his car, or really kind of van, it was like a SUV type deal. It rolled back. It's rolling back, and I'm inching, and I'm like, well, I'm stopped, but it's coming at me. So I couldn't avoid it.
Yeah.
And it, boom, just barely tapped the car. So I get out. He gets out. I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? He's like, I don't know, man. I don't know what happened. And I was like, I'm inching out. I'm like, trying to avoid this whole thing. I knew in my mind, I'm like, and then when it happened, it was just like, here it is. It still happened. But here's the caveat. Because I was inching out, and because his car was rolling so slowly backwards, and I stopped, and his car still rolled back. It was a little small, maybe I want to say 4 or 5 inch dent in his bumper. So I get out, he gets out, we exchange information. He's getting his car towed to some other spot so they can fix something that's going on with his car. So he wasn't even really driving the car. So I get back around to the back of the car and the dent is gone. I said, hey, bro. He's like, oh, man, how did that happen? I said, I don't know. I said, but look, we obviously are in a position where we don't have to continue this conversation any further. So I like to go on my way. You go your way. Have a good day. He was sitting there in shock. And I mean, I already knew. I said, oh, this was it. I mean, I got my message. I followed it and it worked. Right. And so, I mean, the guy was standing there and I'm like, hey, man, is there anything else I can do for you? He's like, no, man, did you do that to my car? I said, I didn't touch your car. I didn't touch it at all. I don't know what happened, but it obviously the little indentation of his bumper was gone. I don't know how. I didn't ask how. Because I'm like, obviously, the forces that be, I've lent myself to their lesson plan, and I got it. Right? So this is just one example of many that I can share, that literally, the astrology is not about avoiding things. It's about learning things, about mastering yourself in regards to your tendency, proclivities, and habits, so that you begin to literally carve destiny to a point where you begin to ride it like a wave instead of being towed under. So with that being said, right, and I have many more stories like that. I'll share more as we go on how astrology can be used in this way, right? But, bar none, right, folks, right? The hand of providence is at work in every aspect of our life, including the desires that we have. And the reason why we have those desires is to exact that same providence in our lives and other people's lives. So with that, we'll leave it there, and we will reconvene next week, same time, same channel.
Indeed. Yeah, with that being said, I want to remind everyone that this episode was brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Calipurusha Astrology. Go check us out on Instagram, go follow us, go subscribe to, whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. Go ahead and subscribe there. Share it with your friends, and help blow this thing up, because just like in this particular episode, we're trying to put astrology into the psyche, in the minds of people, and start thinking about it in a more diverse way, as a lens to kind of view the world through, versus just something just to tell you how your so-called compatibility and things like that. Let's see. Brother Rod, you got anything you want to lead the people with?
Particularly not as far as leaving the people with. There is a website still being crafted and made to serve multiple purposes, not only to allow you to schedule readings, to schedule consultations, to answer questions, to have dialogues. We're trying to actually put a forum on there, so that people can have conversations, right? So that you really can literally get insight from other people that are on the same path, on the same journey. I'll be on there answering and talking about different topics. not of this nature, but more specifically around, because this podcast is really more of a general sense of the word, because if we started getting so detailed and so minutiae into the real world of astrology, we probably would lose a lot of people's attention, because it just, for all intents and purposes, that's not what this show is designed to do. It, like Tef said, his brother said, is really designed to get you to think differently around how life works in the vein of astrology, in the vein of astrology, in the vein of being able to see providence, destiny at work in many different ways, in different areas, from politics, be it sports, to be it, you name it. We talk about it in regards to really relating it to astrology. It's Cosmic Convos. So, but the website will be available hopefully within the next couple of weeks. We're still working on some bugs. We're trying to get some things worked out. So your boy is staying real busy in that regard. When it's done, we'll make an announcement. You'll have a website that you can go to and get all kind of astrological data, information, all kind of goodies, astronomical events that are coming up, different planetary phases, all that will be on the website. So this website will literally assist you as if you were talking to an astrologer, and you'll also have the ability to talk to other people that are studying and practicing astrology as well. So it's going to be something definitely worth the wait. Definitely worth the wait.
Indeed. And before we get out of here, just like I said, a lot of what we do on this podcast funds, kind of what we do individually. So, we got some short films coming on Push It Forward, .com. So, stay tuned for that. I think, this little rollout, these series that we got coming up, I think a lot of people will enjoy it quite a bit and whatnot. But yeah, so, this is a wrap. Episode 16. Thank you all for listening. Like I said, we'll be back next week, Wednesday next week, and same time, same place, with another great topic, great show for you. All right. So, until next time, everybody, be well, be healthy, and peace.
Peace.